Are we live? I think we're live. Hi guys, welcome back to House Polish. Tonight we're on my channel, obviously. I have the lovely Claire and Mrs. Colonel Catherine here with me. We're going to talk about Stormborn, which was aired last night. Personally, I thought it was an amazing episode. I don't know how you ladies feel. I'm going to throw it over to Claire first to talk about her polish for the week and her thoughts of the show.
Sorry, let me just mute this. Sorry about that. Yeah, I much preferred this episode to last week's episode, actually. I still feel as though the episodes seem short. You know, we were expecting them to be, to feel like, I was expecting them to feel like big, long, epic films each episode. But I'm always shocked when we get to the end and it's like, oh, well, it's finished already. It's finished. So to me, they don't seem any longer than the usual episode. So I don't know. I think that's probably a good thing. I like the fact that it started with a storm and ended with a storm. So it was kind of like a complete episode in that respect. But yeah, I liked it. I liked it much better than last week's episode for sure.
What polish did you pick, Claire?
Oh, sorry, I picked. Let me find it. This is to represent the sea battle, and I don't know if you can see that. It's picture polish Saphira, and it actually says on the front bright scales and dragon tails, but it's like a deep blue ocean, and it just kind of reminds me of the sea battle scenes, which I thought were fantastic visually. I thought they were great. So that's my polish for this week, for this episode.
And what about you, Catherine? What did you think?
I loved it, and I have literally just finished watching it because we landed about 3 hours ago. And the first thing we did was watch the episode. So I absolutely loved it. I think it was only 59 minutes. I don't think it was any longer than, I don't think it's as long as the ones that we're expecting to come. So I think it's just it was just a standard length. My polish is this one by Super Chic Lacquer, and it's called Rum Billy. And I have a bit of a rum belly after that scene with Jorah and Sam, because I was telling Lisa, I dry heaved. I actually thought I was going to puke. It was terrible. So that's why there's a little bowl here with some dry cereal, because I was like, it was horrible. I couldn't watch it. It was so bad. That has never happened to me watching anything ever before. And even after last week, this was way worse. So yeah, for me, it was a 10 out of 10 episode.
The segue to the pie.
Yes, yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, but yeah, I loved it, especially because there was lots of conversations in rooms, and I really loved it. I thought the writing was far superior to last week's episode. The only thing I didn't like was the Missandei and Grey Worm scene. It went on too long. Like, as my husband said, we had enough tits in the past. We don't need it anymore. We only have 12 episodes left. Stop this. So hopefully there won't be any more of that. But I can see why they put it in. I'll talk a bit more about that later.
Okay, and for my polish, I also went with the sea battle, but I chose this nice bright orange. This is But First Brunch from Salon Perfect. It just reminded me of the fire over the water, and it was just so spectacular visually. It was such a beautiful, beautiful scene. It was so well shot, and Euron's entrance just made the whole scene. It was it was amazing. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the scene through scene like we did last week. So I think the first scene would have been Dragonstone, with Dany basically putting Varys in his place, and then with Dany meeting Melisandre, And we also had the strategy meeting with the Tyrells and the Martells, and then Grey Worm and Missandre as well. So, Claire, do you want to go first? You got your microphone muted, Claire.
Sorry, we're just talking about Dragonstone generally, Lisa. Yeah. Okay. I thought it was, I think this was a scene where, well, there's a few things really for me. I thought Daenerys looked more Targaryen than she ever has before in the past within that Westerosi setting. She seemed to look very different to everybody else that she was in any scenes with, which really stood out to me visually. I thought it was interesting that this I think is particularly the first scene and the scene with her kind of, I suppose, what would become her small council, where she's with Yara and Illyria and Olenna, and they're all talking about like war tactics. But this is, I suppose, her defining and asserting her personality. And she's going to have to do that because everybody, from Sansa to Cersei to Varys to everybody, is talking about her as if she is the Mad King. I mean, they're talking about, the Mad King's daughter, but she's got a lot to overcome in terms of his history and his reign. So she needs to assert herself there and kind of blossom in terms of her own personality. But I thought she was doing quite a good job there. She wasn't listening to any flattery at all from Tyrion or from Varys. It was like quite clearly you can see she's not going to listen to that. I did think when she kind of put Varys in his place and he stood up to her, and you could see these kind of looks between Varys and Tyrion as if it was like, well, at any minute you could say just leave, just go, or she could have got Grey Worm to just take his head off, or what, so he was quite brave, really, kind of standing his ground. But she was talking about betraying, do not betray me. So after they'd said everything they needed to say, her final words were, if you do betray me, that's it. And he said, I won't do that. But it just makes me think, somebody's going to betray Dany. Who is it going to be? If it's not Varys, who is it going to be? So yeah, I mean, I'll let you both talk before I get on to any other bits there about Mel and because I think there's quite a lot really encapsulated into those Dragonstone scenes.
Any thoughts there, Catherine?
Yeah, a lot of thoughts on the Dany stuff this episode. Yeah, I'm going to stop before we get to the Mel scene as well, because I've just got lots of notes on this. The first thing I want to know is I didn't notice any Targaryen banners over Dragonstone in the opening credits. Did you see Targaryen banners? No. Okay, so I'm not sure what that means. I thought that was interesting. And people are still asking, why is there a Baratheon banner still on King's Landing? For Westeros, Cersei is Baratheon. She was married to Robert, so I don't see why people are confused there. If that changes to Lannister, that's a problem. The thing I liked was the conversation. I loved that opening scene. It kind of reminded me, I don't know, Lisa will be able to help on this a little bit more. It kind of reminded me of a scene from the Harry Potter movies where they move in on Voldemort in the house and he has all his people around him. And I thought, that's a bit strange. That looks like an evil kind of setting. Almost looks like an evil lair, the way they've pictured that and the way they've framed that. So I really liked that. And I liked how they were talking about when she was born. And Varys said, all the dogs in King's Landing howled through the night when you were born, the night you were born. And I'm going to come back to what I think that might mean later on. I liked how Dany is perceptive enough to know, or at least suspect, that Varys got rid of Viserys, or at least set it up so that Viserys would be in Khal Drogo's company, and Khal Drogo would see through him straight away. So I liked that, because that's pretty much what's laid out in the books as well. Varys had probably one of the best speeches he's ever had. Conleth Hill, I saw Conleth Hill in oh gosh, he was in the West End a couple of months back in, it's gone out of my head. Anyway, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And he's just one of my favorite actors. I absolutely adore him. And that was a brilliant speech for him. And I feel there's a lot of foreshadowing there between loyalty and the protection of the people. And I think Varys, Missandei, and Tyrion have all been set up as potential betrayers, like Clare suggested. And I'm going to disagree with Clare about the Tyrion thing, but not until we get to the next Dragonstone scene, because I think there's a problem coming with Tyrion and Dany. I think there's a big conflict emerging between Dany as a ruler and Dany as a tyrant, potentially, when they want to all work for the people. So I think that's coming up, especially if Grey Worm, as I suspect, is going to be out of the picture soon. And that's, I think that's it for this one. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking and let Lisa take over.
This scene with the storm at the beginning, I thought it was very, very poignant, because she was born in the storm. She's coming home for the first time, and she's in the same sort of storm. So I thought it was very, very poignant. The whole conversation with her and Varys was, I think it's the only time I've ever actually was saying. It's the only time I've ever actually trusted what was coming out of his mouth. It seemed like the only time he's ever been truthful. Every other time he's opened his mouth, he's just seemed to be just lies coming out of his mouth. It didn't seem that way this time. It seemed like he was being honest and sincere. So I'm very interested to see where that goes, like with Catherine, what you just said, with them setting up the 3 possible betrayers of Dany. I don't know if it is going to be Varys. I think it may be one of the other 2. That's what I got out of the scene anyway. So moving on to Dany and Mel's meeting. What did you think about that, Claire?
Well, she seemed to be very receptive to Mel, like almost immediately, as if it was like, you're welcome here anytime. And yeah, it seems like Mel, after being completely shunned and the north, has found a friend in Daenerys, so that's quite interesting. But obviously she was there also to kind of represent Jon, and put Jon in a good light, and to talk about what's happening north of the Wall, and to to bring this to Daenerys' attention. And so immediately the worry there is, and throughout the Winterfell scenes as well, is about summoning Jon to the Queen and expecting him to bend the knee. So there's going to be a conflict at that point. So even if Mel is and Tyrion are both, kind of representing Jon in a good light, I think there will be a conflict when Daenerys asserts herself and insists that he bends the knee to his queen. So we're going to be seeing that soon, I think. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to Mel now. Is she just a messenger? Is she going to stick around? Is she going to maybe provide some sort of counsel to Daenerys as she did to Stannis? I mean, Dragonstone was her home for quite a while. She's comfortable in those surroundings. So, and nobody else really knows her that well. The Tyrion and Varys you know, she's a red witch from a shy. They just know of her through, you know, the adventures of Stannis Baratheon. So I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen with Mel now, and whether or not Dany was just saying that, you know, if she just seemed to be sort of welcoming to Mel, or whether or not she's actually paying attention to anything that she's got to say. I mean, there's this thing about the prince and the princess that was promised. So I suppose with Mel, she needs to figure out where her allegiances lie. Is it going to be with Jon? Who does she see in the flames? Who is Azor Ahai to Melisandre? Is it Daenerys or is it Jon? So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I just thought it was interesting that she wasn't given as rough a time as I expected her to be given. You know, she was welcomed into the fold almost. So, and I just don't. Melisandre is one of my least favourite characters. I just don't trust her, despite everything that she's been through in the past and her history. I just don't trust her. I don't like the Melisandre that's in the books, and I particularly don't like the Melisandre that's in the show. Yeah, so I don't know. What do you think?
What do you think, Catherine?
I kind of like Mel, actually. I think you're right, Claire. I think she's a bit of a benign character now at the moment. She doesn't, in terms of, I don't know where she can go apart from being a messenger, although I do think she still has some sort of role to play, because some of the like WTF moments that we've had in previous seasons have involved her. So I don't think they'll wrap up her story unless there's something big at the end of it. I hope not, anyway, because I actually really like the actress. I agree the character is completely wacky, but I really like the actress. I think she does a good job. I did like, the most important thing for me was the no gender in the prophecy in High Valyrian. And something that George R. R. Martin says over and over again is that prophecy is unreliable and it can be misinterpreted, and often it doesn't mean anything. And here we have a very, very good example of that. And I wonder, is it going to be like that in the books, actually? It made me wonder as well about the dawn. She mentioned dawn, and Dany has, you know, we've got dawn with the sword, but also that prophecy where Miri Mazdur gives Dany in season 1 that she can't get pregnant until the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Is that right? Did I get that right? Or is it the other way around? Anyway, so there might be something there. Oh, hi Marco, and hi Florrie. There might be something there to that, I think. And I think that's it for the Mel scene. I really liked it, though. I thought that was a great scene. I think maybe if she's any role going forward, it will be winding Varys up, especially if she steps out of line with the religion thing. Although I think she has pulled that back a lot compared to the other red priests and priestesses in the story. But I think, yeah, I think that's it for the Mel scene for me, anyway.
I really don't think that Jon or Davos are going to be very happy to see her when they get to Dragonstone. I maybe that's the end of Mel right there, because I don't see her going much further forward with her story, to be honest with you. So I think maybe that's the end of her story, is when Jon and Davos get down there. The thing that I'm most looking forward to from this scene is Jon and Tyrion getting back together, because I loved them on screen together. There was such good chemistry between the two characters. I can't wait to see them back together on the same screen. So that's really all I have to say about that scene. What else happened in Dragonstone? Oh, the strategy meeting with I guess Dany's small council is the best way to describe it. What are your thoughts on that one, Claire?
Well, we see it's pretty obvious that Tyrion is, and again, this is probably the qualities that make for a good hand, is that he isn't, you know, a bloodthirsty warmongerer. He's not thinking in the same way that Yara and the Sand Snakes are. He's thinking much more in the long term, you know, the long game. So they're talking about a siege rather than attack. However, they were talking about attack and just completely taking Castle Rock, which made me really excited about seeing Castle Rock. Hopefully next episode. And I agree completely with Catherine. I think we've seen far too much of Grey Worm in the trailer. You know, he had his goodbye sex scene with Missandei, and it's, yes. I was listening to you, baby, actually, her initial reaction, and she started off by saying that she was squinting so hard at the screen to see if she could see it. But I don't mind that I thought it was very sweet that he said that he was the bravest. You know, he might not be the biggest and the tallest and the strongest, but he's definitely the bravest. And I just thought that's definitely going to be everything that was happening in that scene, and the dialogue leads me to believe that we will be seeing the end of Grey Worm next episode, and that he's going to die in a spectacularly brave, heroic manner. But yeah, I also agree with Mr. Cronall that, you know, maybe we saw a little bit. It was a very drawn out filler kind of scene, really. I think this was just a tribute to that we're not going to be seeing much of him as of next episode. I'm looking forward to it, though. It just made me really excited about seeing Castle Rock, and also just little things like seeing Castle Rock on the on the map at the beginning of the episode. You know, what that's going to look like. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Hopefully we'll get that next week. I thought Olenna just pretty much steals the scene in every scene that she's in. And when she's just so engaging as a character and as an actress. And when she was talking about, well, she's basically advising Dany just to ignore advice. You know, don't listen to what anybody, especially these men, have got to say. You're a dragon. You know, go strike out, do your own thing. And yeah, so I think Daenerys took that quite well, actually. I don't know what's going to happen with Olenna. I don't know if she's going to survive. I don't know. I mean, this is crossing over to other areas, but when Arya talks about killing the queen, and I just think maybe that's not necessarily Cersei. Maybe it's a queen, you know, and that could be. It could be Daenerys. Daenerys is queen. There's also Queen of Thorns, which is Olenna. I mean, I don't quite know how that would manifest itself, but also you could kind of say that Sansa is at the moment queen in the north. So it's a little bit scary. You know, she was quite clear when she was talking to those Lannister soldiers, which we didn't see. I just expected this. Well, we'll get to Arya later on, but yeah, let's not go down the Sheeran road again. Back to Dragonstone. It made me excited about what's going to happen at Castle Rock next week. And it just confirmed to me who's who in terms of being, you know, the warmongers and the political strategists, and Tyrion is definitely more of the latter. He's much more of a political strategist. So yeah, but it was interesting to see them all together in the you know, in that room with the painted table and moving all the kind of the pieces around the board, kind of, I suppose, mirrors back to Cersei stood on her map last week, and kind of strategizing about. The small folk were mentioned a few times this week, so I was quite happy about that. Even Cersei mentioned them very disingenuously, but you know, about for the people. But yeah, I think it's just interesting to see Daenerys in that location, and like I said, she just looks very different to all her other, that she doesn't really have any counterparts, but to all her other Westerosi counterparts, she just looks very out of place and very Valyrian and very different to everybody else. But I'm kind of, Daenerys has never been one of my favorite characters, but it's nice to see her asserting herself and not listening to flattery, whether or not she's going to ignore advice later on down the line. She seems to be quite close to Tyrion, so somebody's going to betray her. Somebody's going to betray her, and I'm just trying to figure out who that's going to be. So yeah, what do you think, Kat?
So I have a couple of things here, and just tell me to shut up if I go on too long. I haven't written down as much for the rest of the scenes. So I thought the use of dramatic irony for the small council scene was particularly interesting. I think you're absolutely right. Tyrion and Dany and even Varys, to a certain extent, all look very Valyrian. They look fresh. They look like they're ready to go forward and take over. What's her name? Your one, Mama from Dorne, and Olenna and Yara. They already look drained. Like they've had enough of this already. And they looked out of place there for me. Even Missandei and Grey Worm looked beautiful. Like everybody's like in black, and yeah, I don't know if that's supposed to subliminally suggest to the audience later that this is going to turn around. They're no longer going to be the good guys later. So yeah, the use of dramatic irony for the audience is here, because we know as they're making that plan to send the Dornish army and Yara's army and the Tyrell army to lay siege to King's Landing, we also know that Euron is probably heading their way, or they're at least going to meet Euron. So I thought that was very interesting, and it was a big mistake because they didn't know that, and I don't know why they're not sending out scouts. I don't know why they don't know where Euron is right now. And it's a military weakness that they don't have somebody like Jaime or Senior Tarly in their ranks that knows how to scout that. Like Varys isn't a military guy, so that's a big weakness. Grey Worm doesn't know these guys. He doesn't know what they're like, so that's a huge weakness on Dany's part. And we talked about that before, how Dany is so indestructible that she's going to need a weakness, and I think that's a big weakness for her, especially when we have that Jaime and Tarly scene later on. I liked the way she's talked about being the Queen of Ashes, and Tyrion looked at her like he was very proud. But it struck me that there's 4 Queens of Ashes. We've got Marjorie, who's like literally the Queen of Ashes. We've got Cersei, who's the Queen of Ashes, and Olenna, who's the Queen of Ashes, because her house is destroyed. So it's not just Dany that's going to be in that position. I think there is a problem. I think Tyrion is potentially being set up for a Jaime-like scenario with Dany. Jaime 2.0, except this time it's going to be Tyrion with Dany. And the reason I say that is because the audience trusts Tyrion. They love Tyrion, right? It's George's favorite character. He's been our favorite character. It's Peter fucking Dinklage. Like, he's amazing. So we trust Tyrion. So when we see Dany respect him, we're like, yes, of course, it's Tyrion. However, as soon as he leaves the room and Olenna bashes him, she doesn't defend him. She lets Olenna bash him, and that worries me. And I think that's because Olenna appealed to Dany's highborn side rather than the image of Dany being the beggar queen. Like she'd said to Varys, oh, remind me later on. If I forget about the people, remind me. But Olenna very, very quickly, you're a dragon. Remember, you're a dragon. He's just a clever man. He doesn't mean anything. And Olenna is a snob. And I think it's amazing that actress has made us like her, because Olenna isn't that likable, actually, if you think about it. She's a snob, and she's always been a snob, and she's about the highborn characters, in my opinion. I know I'm being a bit hard on her, but if you really pare back her character and remove the actress, that's who she is. So I think that Tyrion also said this to us. He also reminded us of this in John's letter, when he says to John that all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes. And you can extend that and say he is, you know, a bastard in Olena's eyes, and for her, he isn't what she considers highborn. She had this conversation with Cersei. She had similar conversations with Marjorie, with the High Scepter, the High Sparrow. Like, she's had this all the time. So I am very worried about what they're saying, who is turning Dany's head. And I think for Dany's own good, Olenna needs to get out there. I think she's going to be an issue with Dany. I think she's going to, be a big issue. As something else that has been repeated in the last episode, at the beginning of the last episode, and in this episode, and even a couple of seasons ago, is the idea of sheep. Okay, we had that with Arya. The idea of equating people, lowborn, the small folks, with sheep, and the dragons eating sheep and that kind of thing. And we had references to sheep all over the place. And who will follow certain leaders, but also just treating small folk like they're things that can be burnt and thrown aside. And Tyrion was trying to argue this. You cannot burn thousands of people. You know, we're better than Cersei. But I just wonder, will Dany actually remember that, or will she just go with being a dragon and just burn any of the sheep that are in front of her? And it kind of when I was thinking about, when you mentioned the three, like Varys, Missandei, and Tyrion, they're like the three heads of the sheep. We talk a lot about the three heads of the dragon, but they're like the three heads of the sheep. And I think that's something, you know, Arya has mentioned it as well. You know, don't forget about those sheep there. Don't forget about the small folk. Grey Worm is for the worms, as I said before. I did like when he said to Missandei that you're my weakness, and she says you're my weakness. And she says that I kind of feel that when he's out of the picture, she won't be as loyal to Dany. And I've said this before, I don't think she's going to be as loyal to Dany. Grey Worm will die for Dany, and he will die for Dany. I don't think Missandei will. And that's it. I think Varys and Missandei and Tyrion will pick the small folk over Dany, and she needs a military leader in there pronto, and get rid of Olenna completely, in my opinion.
There was so much going on in that. All of the Dragonstone scenes. There's lots to talk about just in those few little scenes. The one thing that stuck out to me was how bitter the Martells seemed. They just seemed so bitter. Missandei's scene just seemed so drawn out. It did not need to be that long. It just took airtime of other stuff that we could be seeing, and it kind of made me mad. I'm looking at my watch going, is this still really going on? Like, we don't need to be seeing this right now. But that's really all I have to say about those scenes. So I guess moving into Winterfell with the letters that Jon received from both Sam and from Tyrion, and then deciding to go to Dragonstone. What are your thoughts there, Claire?
I actually don't have a lot on Winterfell. There seem to be, there's three kind of separate scenes there. We've got the letter arriving. We've got Jon addressing the Northern Lords about the ravens bringing the news from Sam, and also the news from Tyrion about being summoned to the Queen. And then we've got the final scene in the crypts, which was a lot more underwhelming than I thought it was going to be. I think this is a scene that was hyped up quite a bit in the fandom around. Oh, this will be the bit where Jon finds out from Littlefinger who his parents are. It wasn't anything like that at all. He was just pissed off that he was like, "What are you even doing down here? You shouldn't be here." And I thought it was, well, really that's one of my main things from the Winterfell scenes is Littlefinger trying to figure out whether or not he could manipulate Jon, and I think Jon put him down pretty squarely. You know, he was, the fact that he was like, what, not even a thank you? I don't even get a thank you for turning up with the Lords of the Vale. And it was just like, touch my sister and I will end you. You know, so I think Littlefinger's kind of, I think he realizes that Jon's more of a force to be reckoned with than perhaps he thought, and he's not nearly as easy to manipulate than maybe a lot of the other people around him. But then again, I don't know about Sansa. Sometimes I think, is she putting on a bit of a show for Littlefinger? You know, is she pretending that she listens to him and allows him to try to manipulate her just so that she can try to figure out where he's coming from? But yeah, I mean, what is he doing there? What is he still doing at Winterfell? I don't quite understand why they allow him to still be around. Just going back to the letters that arrived. I love Davos. I think he's just like everybody's uncle, isn't he? He's just such a genuine guy. And I don't know, in my mind, because as a book reader, Stannis is one of my favourite characters in the books. Nothing like he is in the show. Well, a little bit, I suppose, but he's still alive in the books. And Davos in the show seems to have sort of taken over. He seems to have kind of merged into that role as well. So I always think that he kind of represents Stannis still a little bit. But you could just see the realization on his face where it was like, she's got dragons. Dragons breathe fire. Shit, we could do with some dragons. We could really do with them on our side. So yeah, I thought that, I mean, I think it was on my, you know, on like, we get Sky Atlantic here on the TV, and there's like a little description, and within the description it was like, you know, Jon faces potential rebellion, and it was, I don't think it was as quite as bad, again, as I expected it to be. I don't think the rift between him and Sansa is quite as bad as we thought it was going to be. You know, there's these kind of knowing smiles between them, and he was very defensive of Sansa with Littlefinger. It's the first time that Lyanna Mormont has stood up and said something, and although Jon sort of smiled quite fondly at her, it was like, yeah, you're not going to get away with it this time. I am your king. I didn't want this position, but this is where I am, and you put me in this position. He made it very clear that by physically leaving the North, that doesn't mean that he's abandoning the North. If anything, he's just fortifying their position, and he's going off to get what's needed for the North, which is more allies, dragon glass, dragon fire. So he's doing what needs to be done. The other thing that stood out for me in those scenes, and I mentioned this before about Sansa referring to Daenerys as, and the Lord of the Vale, as well as, was it Royce? I think it was Royce. You know, you can't trust a Targaryen, and yeah, nobody knows her. You know, she's just appeared, and like Varys said at the very beginning, you were just known for your beauty and that you existed, and that was pretty much about it. You know, the only other thing that we can relate to is that you are the daughter of the Mad King. So she's got a lot to fight against, but it was just interesting that Sansa and Cersei seem to be so similar in lots of ways, and that worries me quite a bit. She was likening Dany to the Mad King just as much as Cersei was in the King's Landing scenes. But yeah, I definitely think there's less of a rebellion going on between the two, you know, the brother and the sister, that, well, siblings, half siblings, whatever you want to say, but between Jon and Sansa, I think they've actually got a stronger bond than we think. So that was it for me for Winterfell.
All right, I just want to say that Davos is a legend, and I definitely do not think of him as my uncle. I have had very lustful thoughts about Liam Cunningham for many years. Way. I think he's the first male actor I ever fancied. So get away with your uncle stuff now, I can tell you. First of all, no mention, right, of Sansa and Tyrion's marriage. Like, what? I didn't hear anything about that. Like, is nobody talking about that anymore? Anyway, Sansa challenges Jon again, and I think that undermined him in front of the Northern Lords, and I think it undermined him in front of Lyanna Mormont. And as Marco says in the chat, he thinks that the Northerners are still skeptical about White Walkers, and I have to agree. I think they are. And they know what the Targs are. Okay. Again, a lot more irony built in here, and a lot more dramatic irony as well. The first thing is that Jon mentions that he didn't want to be king, and he says it in front of everybody. And then he tells Sansa the North is yours in front of everybody. So that's it. Jon is not going to be king of the North anymore. That's just my feeling. I think that's it for that. I think that's going to play out fairly soon. He's going to lose that, and maybe that's one of the reasons why he ends up going north of the Wall. I think Littlefinger will take advantage of that, and I think this will play into the other piece of dramatic irony in this episode, which is that the Northern Lords stand up and say they don't trust the Targaryens, okay? And they're talking to a Targaryen, and we know that, right? The majority of the audience have figured that out now, and Jon needs to figure that out. By the way, where was Bran in this episode? I love Bran, and I need him to come back. And it shouldn't be taking him this long to get down to Winterfell. But yeah, I wonder, will Littlefinger and Sansa use that knowledge later on to finally just when it's revealed, to use that against Jon? Although I suspect Littlefinger will be long gone by the time that comes out. I'm not sure. Although I have a theory about that. I'll come back. It was mentioned by Varys that Robert never wanted to be king. So I think it would be a very George R. R. Martin thing to do. Very ironic if that the only person in the show that doesn't go chasing the throne at the very, very end of all of this ends up on the Iron Throne like Robert did. And that would be Jon. Ned never wanted to be Lord of Winterfell. He wasn't supposed to be Lord of Winterfell. And yeah, he ended up with it. So I think it would be very nice just to keep with those cyclical things that George likes. If Jon was king in the very end, I never thought about that as a reality, but this episode seemed to be a theme in this episode. And finally, Littlefinger tells Jon, "I was sorry when he died," about Ned. We all know that Ned is dead because of Littlefinger. Nobody else knows that yet, except for somebody who's on the way to the Wall. And I said this in the chat in Kyle's video last week. I think the Hound might be the one to let Sansa know, guess what? Littlefinger is the reason your dad is dead. And then maybe Littlefinger, to try and win Sansa back, might tell Sansa, if Bran isn't there already, he might tell Sansa, Jon isn't a Stark, he's a Targaryen. And then I think Sansa would probably have Littlefinger killed straight away, but she might use that knowledge later on, because I think you're dead right, Claire. She's becoming more Cersei and less Ned every day, and that's really scary. And yeah, I wish she'd go back to Tyrion and be, a dutiful wife, but she won't. Yeah, and Davos is not an uncle. He's hot.
Oh, that was funny. So I'm just looking at my notes here quickly. I'm wondering, is Winterfell even safe for Sansa if she's going to be left there by herself with Littlefinger there? And I don't know. She doesn't seem to have that many allies there. Right now she has her brother. Once he's gone down south, does she have any other allies there to protect her?
She still has Brienne. Yeah,
that's true. She does have Brienne. I didn't think about Brienne, but the other thing that stood out to me is when they were in the crypt, and John grabs Littlefinger by the throat, kind of paralleled what happened in season 1 with Ned and Littlefinger at the brothel, because he had him by his throat as well. Littlefinger is still creepy AF, and I need him gone. He just creeps me out every time he's on screen. I just need him gone. My other little note here was, how is Dany gonna react when Jon gets to Dragonstone and he tells her that he wants to mine the dragon glass? Is she gonna stand in his way? Is she gonna let him do it? I don't know. So those were my notes that I had on the stuff that happened in Winterfell. Any other comments, or do you want to move on to King's Landing?
Yeah, can I just just what you're saying about Littlefinger being creepy, is that possibly the creepiest Littlefinger line ever, when he says that he loves Sansa as he once loved her mother? How creepy is that? Like that, I would choke him. I wouldn't stop.
Skin crawling.
Jon showed a lot of self-control there. I'm sure a lot of people were watching that going, just keep going, don't stop.
Yeah.
That was really, really creepy. And yeah, I think you're right. I don't know why Dany would stand in his way unless she doesn't listen to Tyrion.
Yeah.
Again, unless somebody like Olenna is in her ear saying, don't listen to bastards, we don't do that in Westeros.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. I can't understand why she wouldn't do that. And why doesn't Dany come halfway to meet Jon? Like, she's lazy.
Because she's the dragon queen.
I know, but even last week, I meant to mention that last week, she didn't have to do all that cardio all the way to the top of Dragonstone. She should have just got a lift. I would have been lazy. I would have just got a lift up on one of the dragons. She's shown off. Yeah, shown off.
Okay, so shall we move into King's Landing? Yeah, okay. So we have Cersei rallying support of her lords. Testing out the massive crossbow in the basement on dragon skulls. Those are the two scenes that we had in King's Landing. What were your thoughts, Claire?
Well, I was talking to Jack, the Goodbye Girl, on Instagram, as part of the nail polish community, and she was saying that scene with Qyburn and Cersei and the dragon crossbow, it must be symbolic of a huge foreshadowing of a dragon is going to die this season. And it's I mean, we didn't see it, but Qyburn was saying that he's another one who's just I sort of admire him, but he's just risen through the ranks very smoothly. But he's also so creepy, just so creepy. And it just makes me wonder, how many of those dragon crossbows are being built. And I mean, Cersei looked absolutely delighted. So yeah, that just made me think, a dragon will die. A dragon's going to die this season. Whether or not it's Drogon, I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, I think we did see the three. I'm always fascinated by that visual of the three dragons flying around Dragonstone, and I can't wait to see other people's reactions in Westeros, wherever they, like Arya, wherever she is, just kind of, just people looking up in the sky and seeing these dragons flying around. I don't know whether we're going to see any dragons going to Castle Rock I would imagine so, because they're a big defensive weapon in the attack. But anyway, back to King's Landing. I'm so disappointed in Jaime. He's just such a wet lettuce. I mean, Jesus Christ, she killed your children, and everything about him just seems so limp at the moment. And the funny thing was, and it was actually my husband who said this, when he was talking to Tarly, and he was saying, the Savages and the Dothraki, and we've never seen Dothraki on this will be the first time on Westerosi shores. But actually in the books, there was a Dothraki that was part of what were they called? not the Brotherhood Without Banners, but the Bloody Mummers, and actually it was a Dothraki in the Bloody Mummers who takes Jaime's hand in the book. So there has been a Dothraki on Westeros soil. But yeah, I think that whole everything I wasn't really that interested in what was going on with Cersei. She's just crazy. She's just she's just going deeper and deeper into descending into madness. Yeah, she's talking about the threat of basically the Mad Queen being Daenerys. The main thing that I got from those King's Landing scenes is how much of a linchpin Tarly is within all of this. Everything, from Cersei's point of view, kind of hangs on where Tarly is going, where his allegiances are going to fall. And he did seem to be quite, he had something to say about Olenna, and I am a Tarly, and, so I don't think he's going to be quite as easily swayed as perhaps Jaime thinks he's going to be. But again, just going back to like pre-season, it was like, Cersei's had it. Daenerys is going to arrive in Westeros. She's got 3 dragons. She's got the Dothraki. Cersei's got nothing. She's got no friends. She's destroyed King's Landing, all of the noble houses. But actually, she seems to be doing pretty okay at the moment. Qyburn is a huge help to Cersei. She's obviously got Jaime, with some continuing to have some misguided loyalty. And yeah, I think she's in a stronger position than we think. And then obviously there's Euron as well. But yeah, that's really all I got from the King's Landing scenes, were how important Tarly is, and Jaime wants to make him, the main commander of the Lannister forces. So I'd be interested to see what happens with Tarly as a character and his drippy son Dickon, who, considering everything that Sam's doing at the Citadel and how amazing Sam is being at the Citadel at the moment, as opposed to his ridiculously stupid, handsome brother Dickon. Just the fact that Jaime was saying, "What's your name again, Ricardo?" No, Dickon, and it was just like, it's just. So that's what I got anyway. Not a great deal from King's Landing, just how important potentially the Tarlys are likely to be.
Jaime needs to cop on. I really don't think it's going to play out like that in the book, but in the book we've the benefit of point of view chapters where we'll get his inner workings. I'm going to disagree with you, Claire. Cersei isn't wrong. She's right. There's rapers and savages coming. They should be worried. They have no idea. And there's a Targaryen coming, and they haven't been great. So yeah, she's crazy and she's self-serving, but she's not wrong. There is a problem. There is a big problem. And they don't know what's happening with winter. There's a big problem coming, and they don't know what kind of rain is on offer. Yeah, like Cersei can blow up a sept and stuff like that, and they can be afraid of her, and they are afraid of her. And also, she gets the prize for the most pathetic court in Westeros right now. Very pathetic. But better have Cersei with wildfire that you can deal with later than 3 nuclear weapons flying about and you don't know what's going on there. And also, we know from the plays with Arya, the Mercy stuff, that there's actually a very good view of Cersei, a very sympathetic view out there to a certain extent, and a very negative view of Tyrion. So I'm not entirely sure. Cersei came off very well, I think, in front of those guys. And I think only for that, Tarly would have been less inclined to listen to Jaime. I did like how Tarly said to Jaime, Tarlys are not oath breakers. And it made me think that I wonder, will it take somebody with Oathkeeper to make him pay for breaking oaths later on. So that was just something that I thought about. Claire, you'll correct me now if I'm wrong. Is Brienne from Highgarden? Is she from that area as well, or is she near there? I know she came from the Sapphire Isle, but is that over towards Highgarden? Would she know all of these people? I'm not sure.
I'm just looking at my map.
Or is she closer to Storm's End?
It's more the Stormlands. Yeah, it's more,
okay, right. Okay,
yeah.
that's, I couldn't remember. Sorry, it just jumped into my head there. But I think that if it kind of, when Tarly was saying that about being not being an oath breaker, he's a very honourable man. The last time we had an honourable man break an oath, Brienne took care of it. Okay, so that's just, you know, a very Stannis-esque scene with Jaime there. And when Jaime says that there are savages and eunuchs on the loose in Westeros, again, he's right. We've got the Dothraki and the Wildlings, those savages, and then we've got the eunuchs coming in the form of the Unsullied, but not just the Unsullied. The Night's Watch are going to have to leave soon, and they're kind of, in theory, eunuchs in a way. So there's a lot of variables there that the people in the south, kind of like, you know, the people in Europe, as we face climate change and increasing war in our own world, we're going to have to, like, I'm not saying that we're going to deal with savages and eunuchs, not at all, but we are going to be dealing with variables that we don't understand. We're going to be dealing with a lot of immigration, and they are going to be dealing with a lot of immigration in the south. There's going to be famine, there's going to be winter. They don't even know about the zombies yet. And now they have savages that they don't know. Dothraki have never been nice. We have got a nice insight into the wildlings, but let's remember the cannibal wildlings. Let's remember that the wildlings aren't a great bunch. Like, we love Tormund, but Tormund isn't your standard wildling. So I think Jaime and Cersei have valid points there, and I feel bad for Randall Tarly, actually. I think he will have to break oaths, and unfortunately for him, he's going to try doing it for the good of the people, but we have the benefit of knowing the full picture, that it's going to be actually a very bad thing. Cersei and Qyburn, when they shot Balerion, was it Balerion? Is that the name of the dragon? I felt like they were shooting the book readers in the head, actually. They show us him, and then they instantly shoot him. And yeah, we did say that a dragon would die, and definitely a dragon's going to die. And one last thing, Cersei said that Robert kept the Targaryen banners and the skulls around and the dragon stuff around because he felt like they were trophies. And I wonder, does she feel like he kept her around because she's a bit of a trophy as well? She was the spoils of war. So yeah. And also Robert had a bit of Targaryen blood in him, so, you know, maybe he liked having them around. So yeah, that's it.
Some very good points there, Catherine, for sure. I think with the whole Cersei versus Dany thing, it's kind of like the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Right now, they only know Cersei. They don't know Dany. So do they trust this devil, or do they trust this one? The one that they know, the one that they don't know. I don't know what to expect with Randall Tarly. What is he gonna break the oath like you said, or I don't know. My other thinking on this is, how is that relationship going to affect Sam and John's relationship? Is that going to affect it in any way, with his father supporting Cersei in the south? I don't know. And the other thing that I had written down here was the big crossbow. How accurate is that going to be when they're swooping around in the air? It doesn't look like it's very maneuverable. So how accurate is it actually going to be? Any other points we want to make? No? Okay, moving on to the Citadel with Jorah and his and his lovely yeah, it's not looking good for Jorah right now, is it? Thoughts there, Claire?
these were my favourite scenes, weirdly, not the peeling of, not the real revolting peeling away the scales and the skin, but Sam's one of my favourite characters, and just when is he called Ambrose, or he's Marwyn in the books? He's Archmaester Marwyn, which is coincidentally the name of my dog, who's named after. And I thought everyone who, when I go to take him for a walk in the park, and all of the other dog owners say, "Where's Marwyn? Where'd you get that name from? Where does Marwyn come from?" And I think, well, I used to think, well, if you watch Game of Thrones, then you'll see this character coming up later on, and it's like, I can't believe that they didn't call him Marwyn; they've called him something completely different. So I've still now got a dog that nobody understands why I've called him Marwyn. But yes. I thought it was interesting when he was talking, he's an Archmaester, and he was talking about, this is beyond our understanding, and we don't, we don't know enough about this. And I just think Sam has just gone completely out on a limb, and he does things differently. So I think in the future he is going to be, if the Citadel indeed still exists, I think he's going to make much more of a splash in that environment in the Citadel, and it just made me really proud of him that he did that he wanted to go out on a limb and help. There was loads of talk last week about this. We spotted something in the books about dragonglass potentially being a cure for grayscale, and I think a lot of people were thinking that it was something that you'd have to ingest it, and it's like, well, and I'm thinking, well, no, surely it'd be something more that was like a salve or like a topical ointment that you would be rubbing into the skin. That's how I imagined it. So I felt as though it was a bit of a win, really, when you could see all of that horrible stuff that was happening in that procedure. But it was like, I wonder how quick, and in my mind, I was just thinking more of the kind of chemistry of it, really. How quickly is it going to work when Ambrose, or is it Ambrose or Ebrose? Do you know, Catherine, which one it is? I'm going to say Ambrose, but the Jim Broadbent character, when he was saying that you've got about 6 months left before your mind goes, and why don't you just go and live your days out with the Stone Men? And it's like, no, there's more to Jorah as a character, and you could see him writing the letter to Khaleesi and trying to explain to her why he went to the Citadel to find a cure, and I thought what I got from this anyway, which was my big kind of take from it, is Jeor Mormont, who's Jorah's father, in my mind, saved his son. He did it through Sam, but he saved his son at the end of the day. So that scene when he died, right way back in at Craster's Keep with the mutiny, and he said, tell, and this was in the books as well, if you ever see Jorah, tell him that I forgive him. And I just thought, it's more than that. You've actually saved your son's life. And it just makes me think, will this have an impact on Jorah? Will it make him reaffirm his Mormontness? Will this be something where, yes, he's got this massive allegiance to Daenerys, but will he also appreciate the fact that Sam had this close, had this not necessarily even a close relationship, but a very respectful relationship of the old bear, and if Sam does manage to save his life, which it looks like that's going to happen, will this ultimately help forge the alliance between Daenerys and the North? So those scenes, in a very kind of micro way, to me, represented a much bigger relationship between Jorah and Khaleesi, and Jorah and the North, and Sam. And so basically, if Sam cures Jorah and he turns up at Dragonstone, is he going to vouch for Jon and the North because of Sam and the Night's Watch and his father? So that's what I got from it. And just the fact that Sam, in his own little way, he's pretty badass. He's going out on a limb and he's doing, and yet you go back to King's Landing and you've got Tarly and his other son, who just seems like a big, waste of space to me. And just the injustice of that, really. But yeah, I love Sam. The actor who plays Sam is from a really rough area of Manchester. Where my husband works, actually, in that area. But it's and it's the kind of place where you have to have a pretty good sense of humour, and the actor, I think, really brings that character into the role. So yeah, I just love Sam, and I think the actor who plays him is doing a cracking job. So yeah, that's what I got from those scenes. What do you think, Kat?
Yeah, I think John Bradley, right? That's his name. I think he is really killing it, because he has very little to do compared to some of the other characters on the show. So I really do think he's killing it. I think, like last week, it can't just be Dragonglass that Sam discovers. There's another reason why he's at the Citadel. Again, it can't just be Grayscale that he cures. There's another reason why he's at the Citadel. And yeah, I thought the idea of eating Dragonglass was a bit crazy, but it probably is avoid ingestion. I would imagine it's something against ingestion rather than ingestion. But that would be very painful, actually, going in and going out. I loved the scenes in the Citadel. As I said at the beginning, I dry heaved, and Marco kindly reminded me of Grayscale Pie. Thank you very much, Marco. That really turned my stomach again. I think I nearly said John. I think Sam's job will be forcing the Maesters to come into the fray, to pick a side, and they'll have to pick Jon's side, because curing Grayscale is a big deal. That's like curing Stone Whites almost, or stopping somebody from becoming a Stone White, if you want. So that's a huge deal. And yeah, I think every Maester, because they're such a network, right? They have a huge network across Westeros. They will be very instrumental in convincing everybody that here there's a bigger problem than just it getting cold. So yeah, I think there's going to be I think there's going to be something there. Sam with the Lannister book, I wasn't sure what that was about. What was there a bit of, maybe it was a bit of a nod and a wink that's saying, they won't have to add much more to the Lannister book, because there may not be any Lannisters around left to talk about, to research, because they're researching the reign of King Robert I, isn't that right? And the aftermaths of King Robert I. And I liked that he wanted it to be a bit more poetic. I thought that was funny, because that's like George's titles are always a little bit poetic. And yeah, I do think that the ointment thing, I wonder, is there something more to it? Why is it such a big secret? Why is it still a secret to the audience? Is he grinding up Dragonglass and using it in the ointment, or is there something else to that ointment? Can it do something else? I'm a bit confused about that. And just from a book reader perspective, is this going to happen in the book with the character in the book that has Grayscale in the book? I was wondering, John Connington, I'm not sure if that's going to happen in the book. Just for any book readers, you can tell us in the comments what you think, because it made me think, is that what's going to happen there? Yeah, but that's it. That's really all I had with the Citadel. I'm still worried about that library. I don't want it to be like the library at Alexandria. I don't want it to burn down. That's my major worry with that. But yeah, that's it for me.
The one thing that really stood out to me when Sam realized that it was Jorah Mormont that he was standing in front of, it just seemed to make you want to help like that. It just, this is the old bear's son. I gotta help this. Gotta help this guy out. That just this the type of person Sam is, right? I thought it was funny when he was asking the maester for help on trying to cure the grayscale, and he's like, "Well, do you know how the guy who cured grayscale died of grayscale?" I just hope it's not foreshadowing that poor Sam's going to get grayscale from curing Jorah. I think that's all that I really had on the Citadel. I think. Was there anything else that I had? No, that was all that I had written down for the Citadel. Any other comments?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Can I just mention one more thing? Just when you mentioned there that the Sam could potentially get grayscale, I thought that as well, because I don't know if he was being that careful. But also, Gilly's baby is still there, and I know I mentioned this before, that they're keeping that baby there. A very striking looking child, beautiful kid, but very, very striking looking. So they can't change that child. They know that. So there's something there with that baby, something. And remember, that baby should be with the Night's King. A very striking blue eyes still. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if Sam getting grayscale, maybe passing it to the child, or the child somehow getting grayscale and something weird happening with a child with grayscale that should be a white, or like, what is there a special name with the White Walkers? They're the White Walkers. He should be a White Walker. So yeah, I don't know if there's something, I don't know, maybe Clare has something on that, but there's something weird with that child, and I want to see more of that baby, because I'm not breedy or anything like that, but that's a cute kid.
Isn't it something to do with the numbers in the books, Kat? Isn't that baby the 100? There's a special number. Yeah,
that's right. Is it the 100th or the 19? No, it's the 99th or the. I think it's 100th. Maybe somebody in the chat knows, but I think it's the 100th. There is a special number with that baby. Like they are looking for that child. There's a reason why that child is important, and there's definitely a reason why he's so striking, and they've definitely given him blue eyes on purpose. So there's something there.
It might be the entire reason that they're marching south, just because they need to have that baby, and because of that special number. That this could be what it's all about. The whole thing could be what it's all about.
That would be interesting, but how would they explain? Because 2 of them have died so far, right? 2 White Walkers have died.
Yeah.
Because Sam killed one. They could be going after Sam as well. Sam killed one, and then Mira killed one. Oh, and John killed one. So there's. Oh no, did Mira kill one? She did, yeah. So 3 have been killed. So maybe he does need. Yeah, I don't know, but they're hinting at it a lot. So, and it is something in the books. We actually don't get enough about it in the books. I think we're getting a lot more about it in the series. So we get a lot about Gilly's baby in the books, but the actual origins of the White Walkers and stuff, we've gotten way more in the TV series. And there's definitely something with that child for sure.
There's I'm hoping that in the next book we get to find out a lot more about ice magic. We know a bit more about fire magic than we do about ice magic. I mean, we know very little about it, how it works, where it comes from. I've got several theories. I'll just very quickly talk about my main theory, which isn't really very well put together, but I don't believe that there is any religion whatsoever in this realm. I think that religion is rooted in elemental magic. So there's fire magic, ice magic, and then from that descends you have there are legends and godlike characters from each of those. So you've got like the area of fire, you've got magical creatures that link it. It all seems to kind of loop back to the elements, and it is, after all, a song of ice and fire. So, and especially when all of this stuff came out about George dropping this, you know, there about Beric Dondarrion being a fire wight, and it was like, oh my god, you know, and everyone was talking about wights and stone wights, and I was having a conversation with somebody on one of their channels about this, and they were kind of joking and talking about Patchface, and it was like, yeah, but maybe Patchface again isn't in the TV show, but he's like a jester for Shireen, and he was drowned and he survived. But he kind of speaks in riddles. And I think that Patchface is a water wight. So, you know, it all kind of links into this theme of elemental magic. And I think that also potentially, just going right off on tinfoil curveball, is that might be linked to the names of the bastards as well. You know, snow, sand. I'm trying to think of the others now. Flowers, rivers, yeah. It's kind of, you know, all of this could be rooted in the sort of history and lore of the universe, but it's for me, it's all about elemental magic rather than religion. But I've gone way off on a tangent there. What were we talking about?
No, I think you're right, Claire, and I think we could probably do, when the series is over, a whole stream on that alone. Because we kind of touched on that last week. I kept saying astrology in the video, but obviously I meant astronomy. I don't think they care about astrology in the Westeros. I obviously meant astronomy, but I do think that's a really, really important thing, and maybe we can rope Mr. Cronin into talking to us as well, because he is really interested in this part of it, because he studied physics and chemistry and things like that, so he really loves that part of it. But yeah, I think they've kind of gotten rid of the dire wolves because they're difficult to deal with. Okay, there's no way you choose to have a baby in a show unless you need the baby there. Okay, you don't keep the baby around. They're hard to deal with on long days and long shoots, and it's not fair on them. They regularly switch out the actors. They haven't switched out this baby from last season, and it's a very striking kid. So I think there's definitely something going on there. But sorry, Lisa, we've kept you from talking about your favorite scene. I know that. Oh, we can't hear you.
My favorite scene will be where it cut from Jorah to the pie. That was such good editing. Oh my god, it was so good. I was so surprised to see hot pie. It was nice for Arya to have that little reunion with him and kind of joke about the Frey pie as well a little bit there. But at least it looks like she's heading back north now instead of down south, so hopefully we get somewhat of a Stark reunion, although Jon won't be there. What else was I going to say about Arya coming back for a very, very brief second? I really hope that isn't the last we see of them.
Oh, Lisa, I think we lost you there for a second. I think, did we lose Lisa?
You there,
Claire,
Lisa?
have you lost? Oh, god damn it! It's the White Walkers. It's the air. We haven't talked about air whites. This is what they've done.
That's the internet.
Oh, hi, Margaret. Margaret Yoder's in the chat. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Margaret.
And while Lisa's coming back, can we just, because Marco made an excellent comment there, if I can get it up here, saying that's why the Citadel forbids all the magical elements, like magical elemental or talking about that kind of thing is forbidden there, and they forbid it in Westeros. They don't want to talk about it because they think it's dangerous. So I think there is something to that for sure. Because the Citadel, they're not religious. This is the the perception is that they should be, because they're kind of a monk-like order, but they're not. So when Pycelle is sleeping with prostitutes and stuff like that, they're probably not supposed to do that, but I don't think it's not that big a deal. Like, it's not a spiritual problem. But sorry, Lisa, you got cut off when you were talking about hot pie, and I think you were going to say that you don't want him to leave.
You muted, Lisa.
Is she frozen? I think she's frozen. Okay, well, maybe Lisa can come back. Claire, do you want to give your thoughts on the Arya stuff?
Yeah. Hot Pie is such a legend, and I think he's a real fan favorite. And every time we see him, he just looks like he really is a survivor. When he was kind of, he was joking and saying to Arya that he was a survivor as well. And I thought, in his own little way, he is. But I think we should rename Hot Pie Free Pie, because he wasn't going to let Arya pay for his pie at all. Yes. Stuart's saying he's like, I don't know if you can hear him in the background. He's saying,
hi, Stuart.
That Hot Pie's like the news. He's like, the news in the inn at the crossroads. He gives them all the updates. He gives Arya all the updates on what's happening. He's like the internet, I guess. And yeah, telling Arya that the Boltons have been put down by Jon, and that Jon's now king in the north, which was just such a satisfying moment to see Arya's reaction to that. The bit where because I think there's quite a lot in the dialogue. You can interpret things in different ways. I mean, when he's talking about, there was another quote a couple of seasons back where he was saying it's all about the gravy. It's all, don't forget the gravy, when he's talking about the pies, and the fans went wild theorizing about what the gravy was. But this time he was talking about the best way to make the pie crust, and he was talking about how he works the butter in a particular way, but a lot of people don't do that because it takes too much time. And Arya said, no, I didn't do that. So everybody was thinking, oh yeah, that's like a comment about Arya and the Frey pie. But I also think that my interpretation of that quote was her talking about her time in the House of Black and White with the Faceless Men. It takes up too much time, and she didn't do that. She went around, she took what she needed to, and she went on her own, she went her own way. So she didn't go through all of the, she didn't go through all of the training and everything that you would normally have to go through to become a Faceless Man. So him saying it takes up too much time, and she said, well, I didn't do it. I didn't do it that way. It just made me think about her. That was her talking to herself about her experiences of being a Faceless Man and in the House of Black and White. The only other thing, because I'll just kind of finish my bit here about Arya, is I've been so excited about seeing Nymeria, and it's been teased and spoiled, and we were all talking about, when is this going to happen? And do you remember we were talking last week, and you both hadn't seen the kind of millisecond flash of the wolf in the trailer, and as it turned out, it wasn't Nymeria. It was one of her pack. But he's getting all chirpy. Yeah, it's I just think that even, yes, we haven't got the budget to be able to have this massive dire wolf, and we hardly ever see Ghost, but I just think it doesn't matter if it was just such a special moment to see them face to face like that. I don't think it matters that they're not going to be together, you know, in the budget restrictions, blah, blah, blah. I think they're always going to be together in that kind of spiritual way. And in the books, this is much more pronounced, Lisa. Arya has wolf dreams where she dreams about basically being with the pack in the Riverlands. So and a lot of book readers think that Arya might even be possess those warging powers much more than her siblings, because she's able to have those wolf dreams over a massive amount of distance. I mean, she's in Braavos at the time when she's having wolf dreams. And she's also able to kind of skin change into other animals and see through the eyes of cats and things like that. You don't see any of that in the TV show. Sorry if I'm spoiling this for people who want to read the books at some point, but it is an element of Arya's character and personality. And when she was saying, you know, come with me, girl, and come back to Winterfell, and it was very, very brief exchange. But it was that bit at the end where she said, when Nymeria just kind of, she stopped snarling and she just kind of looked at her. And there was an understanding there. And then she turned away and Arya said that, no, that's not you, as in you wouldn't go back to Winterfell. You're not part of the pack. You've got your own pack now. And she was saying that to herself. She was kind of saying, no, I'm not, that's not me either. Why am I going back to Winterfell? I'm not part of that pack anymore. In fact, I'm not even Arya Stark anymore. I've been through so much that why would I do that? That's not me. So I don't think she is going to go back to Winterfell. I think that was the bit that made her think that she's not going back to Winterfell. Yeah, so I'm getting myself a bit mixed up here because I'm really struggling to read my notes. I must have written loads of things down here about this scene. But yeah, you could look at that different ways. You have your pack, I have mine, or, you know, there's no need for us to be together. That's not you. There's that quote, just those 3 words, that's not you, is just loaded with so much meaning. But for me, I took that as, no, kind of going back to, you know, come on, girl, let's go back home, let's go back to the north, let's go back to Winterfell. And when Nymeria turned and walked away, I just thought that's a clear indication to Arya that actually that's not me, that's not you, that's not who we are anymore. And it just makes me think she's not going to be going back to Winterfell, and she's probably going to proceed on her journey to King's Landing. But also, I think she is going to kill a queen, if not Cersei. So I loved it. I absolutely loved seeing Nymeria. I loved the sheer size of her, you know, against the size of just the kind of regular wolves. The fact that she's like a queen of this pack. And yeah, I've just put in my notes, Nymeria, oh my god, because that was just like the epic part of the episode for me. But yeah, I absolutely loved it.
I agree, Claire. I totally love the Nymeria scene. I think if we never see Nymeria again, I'm okay with that. I don't want another direwolf killed, and I think she was huge. She was massive, like she should be. And I loved it. I loved the idea, the horse getting upset, the pack of wolves with her. They look like they're going to attack. I liked the Arya line when she says, come with me, and then she says, that's not you. I think that's a really interesting interpretation you came up with, and I didn't think of that, but I did think of 3 other things. Number 1, that it's her looking into a mirror and saying, that's not you. In other words, that's not me anymore. Because I think it was Marco again. Yeah, Marco says, when Hot Pie asked her what happened to you, she's speechless. In other words, Hot Pie is the first person that she's really Hot Pie is the first person that she's met that knew who she was as a human being, that knew who she was as Arya. So or Ari. So he knows that she's not the same person, and he knows it very quickly. And I really loved Hot Pie. You're totally right, Lisa. I'd love to see more of him. But yeah, so the first thing, that's a mirror. The second thing, and this might be way out, that's not you. Is it Bran maybe warging Nymeria? Probably not. I don't think he would. And number three, and this is the one that I would lean towards, is it foreshadowing for the reaction she's going to get from either Jon or Sansa, that they're going to see her and not see Arya. I mean, we have to remember Arya was such a little kid when she left Winterfell. She's not. They didn't even really know her as well as Hot Pie did in some ways. Jon did, but Sansa didn't really. And I mean, you could argue about that, but I wondered maybe as well it would be foreshadowing, because I think when Arya dies, it'll be just her body that's dead. I think she'll either warg into Nymeria or she'll go off and take somebody else's face. I've said that's the Hound, and I have a whole theory about that, but we're not going to go into that right now. So come with me, that's not you. I think they're going to come back again. Those two lines, there's going to be deeper meaning there, because that Nymeria scene is the scene that we've waited for. It kind of struck me that Arya belongs more in this part of Westeros than any other part of Westeros. I don't think she belongs in Winterfell. I don't think she belongs south. I think she's perfectly at home in the Trident. So I do believe that when Arya dies, she will warg into Nymeria and live out her days and gradually become no one through Nymeria. Because if, as we know, and I think they mentioned this in the show, but definitely in the books, that if you warg into something and you stay in that person too long, you become that person or thing or wolf or raven or whatever it is. So yeah, that was the Arya scene. But just to backtrack to the Hot Pie scene, totally shipping Hot Pie and Ari. Totally shipping that, all over that. And I want to be at the wedding, but I don't want the grayscale pie. Thank you very much. I will pass on that. So Lisa, you got rudely interrupted by the Night's King, so please tell us what you thought.
Both of you kind of blew me away with your theories there about Nymeria and Arya. It's yeah, you just kind of like threw me for a loop there. Because I was thinking back to season 1, where I think Marco actually just mentioned this in the chat here, when Ned told Arya, "You're gonna be a lady," and Arya said, "That's not me." Is it bringing back to that too? Like, it's just kind of like a whole big circle going around. But yeah, I was excited to see Nymeria, but kind of also disappointed that she just kind of turned. I guess like with the budget, they can't afford to keep her around. And I loved Hot Pie and Arya. I thought that was super cute. And I agree with Catherine. I totally ship that. I totally want an invite to that wedding.
It was so cute when he said, "You're actually quite pretty."
Yeah, but Hot Pie and Ari, not Hot Pie and Arya. Okay. Because Hot Pie doesn't deserve the whole pile of mess that Arya would be. But Hot Pie, I think it's like do you know that movie with Gina Davis, The Long Good Night or something, where she's a hitman, or she was an assassin, and she kind of ends up with this like really lovely kind of domesticated guy, and she's just completely opposite of what she ends up being. I think that's what Arya would be if she ended up with Ari, or being Ari rather than yeah. I love the way he kept calling her Ari as well.
Yeah, so it was cute. It was cute. I really like that scene with them back together for sure. I don't have any more comments on Arya. Do you guys? You guys ready to move on to the big finale?
Yes.
I have Euron versus Yara written down as my note. What do you think there, Claire?
I thought it was visually great, fantastic, really great battle scenes. Everything, the colour schemes, the atmosphere, everything. the few notes that I've taken from it is I think Theon seemed to kind of skip between Theon back to Reek, back to Theon, back to Reek. It was almost like the rocking of a boat was, he was just switching backwards and forwards, like when Yara was saying to Ilaria, you know, he's not your servant, when she kind of demanded that he go and get her a drink like he was a servant, and he kind of dutifully went and did exactly that. But he was, because I thought, did he actually pick up arms? Was he fighting at all, Theon? And when I rewatched it, I noticed he was actually he was giving it his all in the battle scenes, but he just crumbled. He completely crumbled at the end. But then I thought, but maybe that was just the sensible thing for him to do at the time, because it looks like Euron isn't going to kill Yara. He's going to take her as a hostage, take her back to King's Landing. She's part of the gift for Cersei. So maybe that wasn't the kind of Reek cowardly thing necessarily to do. And maybe, and this was Jack again earlier, the goodbye girl, who was saying, she was questioning whether or not Theon would come back and actually save his sister again in some way, shape or form. I mean, you know, I wouldn't necessarily write those two off at this point, but Euron, oh my God, this actor he wasn't kidding when he said there are so many more dimensions to Euron this season, compared to the few minutes that we got of just this laughable kind of character at the end of last season. He was scary. He was really, like, yeah, scary. I don't quite know, although I think Stuart was looking up on the internet who was hanging from the ship at the end, and he was saying that it was a couple of the sand snakes that died. I think the ones who survived were Mama, Ilaria, and her, you know, the young daughter. I can't remember the name of it. The only name I can remember is Nim, who was the one who got killed straight away, and she had the blood coming out of her mouth. She's gone. Nymeria, another Nymeria, and Obara. Yeah, it was Obara. That's who I was thinking of. The kind of the warrior one. She, yeah. I mean, I thought the Sand Snakes fight scenes were slightly better than the ones that we had in Dawn that everybody hated for like 2 years. I thought the battle scenes were much better. But yeah, I just thought it was epic. I thought those scenes were really, you know, it was like I was watching a kind of blockbuster film. I really, really enjoyed those. I think it seemed to happen really quickly. Like I said, I felt at the end of the episode was like, oh, is that it? It's finished. There's not another, you know, after the ad breaks, we're not going to get any more. But for me, I just got that. This was all about Theon for me, and that kind of rocking backwards and forwards with that persona. And just remember, he was with Ramsay for a long time, and he was completely, you know, demasculated by Ramsay, and you know, he just had everything stripped away from him. And I don't know if he's managed to kind of build anything back again, and whether or not he will save Yara. I mean, it'd be wonderful to think that maybe he could do that, and that ultimately he's, you know, Theon's going to have this kind of redemptive story arc. But I just feel Theon's one of those characters where you kind of feel for him, but at the same time you want to slap him across the face. So that's good. You know, that must mean that Alfie Allen's doing a good job. But yeah, I'm glad that we've kind of seen the end of the Sand Snakes, but I don't know, who knows. I keep looking at your stamping, by the way, on your nails, Lisa. Well done, very good job. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I just thought it was an epic, you know, end to the episode. And again, going back to what I said at the beginning, the episode started with a storm and it ended with a storm. Yeah, just those scenes with Theon in the water. But yeah, what do you think, Kat?
So they started out by trolling us with the whole mama and the hammocks and the sand snakes. It's like, oh God, get these people off my screen. And then, you know, the whole potential sex scene with Yara. They started that off, but later on, nice nod and a wink to the audience, drag out the most violent deaths ever for two of the most annoying sand snakes. Yeah. I am going to again disagree with you, Claire. This is a night of disagreeing with you in a little bit. I think Theon actually was actually very strong there. He didn't take the Reek way out. He took the Yara way out. That's what Yara would have done. Yara would have left him and jumped. She wouldn't have tried to save him. I think that's what she would have done. And I think, I don't know, I could be wrong. It could be a Reek thing, but I kind of feel that that's... if that happened in the book, if there was something similar to that, I wonder would he debate what she would do in that situation? I don't know. Maybe I misread it, but
I think it was
I'm not sure.
You could just see this solitary tear kind of roll down Yara's face.
Oh, really?
She was kind of watching Theon decide, you know, what to do. There was this kind of tear that rolled down her face
because she left him behind before. When she was faced with, like, she couldn't save him. Like, he couldn't save her. And that brings up two questions. First of all, give Theon a bow already. He isn't a sword fighter, and he wasn't a sword fighter previously in the show. Give him a bloody bow. Then he'll be able to take out Euron. The second thing is, who the feck brings a whip to a sword fight? That sand snake deserved to get it. I'm sorry. A whip is not going to help, okay? By the way, Euron took such a beating as well. Like, he is... There's something going on there. I think we're going to get maybe a little bit of magic Euron. I loved the scene where he comes down onto the boat and he's doing his own fighting. I think that'll be his downfall in the end, hopefully. But I was rooting for him with the sand snakes. I know other people are probably rooting for the sand snakes in that scene, but no, they needed to go. I'm guessing that he's taking Mama and her babe to Cersei so that Cersei can kill the daughter in front of the mother. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. So that she can watch her daughter die. Nod to the book readers again. I believe they were cutting out tongues of the slain and the slaves that they're maybe taking. So there seem to be cutting out tongues there. And I don't think Yara is for Cersei. I think Yara is for him. And if you don't want the Winds of Winter spoilers, mute me right now. I'll give you a second to just mute me. I think Yara might take the damp hair role from the released chapter. I think that's his plaything. I think Yara will be his plaything. Cersei wouldn't need Yara, and she wouldn't even know who Yara is, I would imagine. So I'm guessing Euron will keep Yara for himself. And it will be something to taunt Theon with until Theon rescues her potentially. But yeah, sorry for disagreeing with you so much, Claire.
No, it's fantastic.
But what do you think? I must rewatch that again. I've only watched it once, so I didn't notice the tear. But I wonder. Part of me thinks that maybe he doesn't have a choice in that scene. Like, what can he do? If he tries to make it, if he tries to go for him, she's definitely dead. Whereas if he jumps, then he's playing into Euron, thinking he's a coward, but maybe Yara knows he'll come back. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, Lisa, maybe you'll give us your opinion on that as well.
It was hard to watch that scene with Theon, though. It was like he just seems so broken. It was like, do I save her? Do I not save her? What? And then he jumped. It's like he just seems so broken. Like you say, he's been with Ramsay for so long that it's I don't know. Like like you said, it was the Yara's way out. That would have what Yara would have done. Think I have to agree with you on that one, Catherine. After you said it, I think I agree with you that he took the Yara way out.
I think she would see that he doesn't have an option. She knows it's going to break him again, that he can't protect her, especially because they've just talked about that.
Yeah.
Again, he doesn't have a bow. I don't know why. But yeah, Claire, just what you said about Alfie Allen, I think hands down the best actor on the show. He is hands down. He's just incredible.
He's so good.
I still can't believe, how great he is every time he comes in.
Sorry
for interrupting.
No, he just looks so broken. He just like, what do I do? So, like you said, he took the Yara way out because he knew that he couldn't save his sister in that moment. So by jumping, he effectively saved her from dying in that moment. So, when Euron came down off of that, it was just completely badass. Oh my gosh. I was like, this is amazing. Like, it was just like huge, big budget movie going on right in my TV screen. The way he just came down off of the gangplank, it was awesome. So good. And I don't like Euron's character at all, but it was just that entrance. It just made that whole scene. It was perfect. It was so good visually. It was just the direction, whoever directed that episode just did such a good job on that ending scene. It was so well done. And I actually had a note here, who the heck was hanging from the boat? You guys answered that question for me, so there we go. I'm like, is it the Sand Snakes? I don't know if it is or not, but I guess it was. So, yeah. Any other comments?
My husband asked, how did Euron know what ship the Dorn, the Sand Snakes were on?
Yeah.
And Yara and Theon. Also, very stupid putting them all on the one ship. Very stupid. Yeah. I don't know why they did that. Why weren't the Dornish surrounded? But what I would say is that if I was giving the show a lot of credit, what I would say that maybe one thing that would mark the ship is if not all of the Arborn with Yara and Theon are loyal to Yara and Theon.
That's very true.
That unless Euron has some informants in there, or again, unless they're going to play up the magical aspect to Euron. We've got the nod with the cutting out the tongues. So in the books, Lisa, Euron cuts out the tongues of any of the sailors working on his ships, so that they can't tell anything about what they've seen with Euron or tell anything about him. But they didn't do it. Well, we don't know if any of them talk, actually. They might not have.
Yeah.
None of his crew might have tongues. We don't know. So I find it really hard to say that word as an Irish person. I don't know. But it's the T. It's the T. But yeah. So I that's what I think. He either has informants, or they're gonna maybe slightly hint at the magical stuff, or give some sort of favor to the. I didn't see the previews now for next week, so I have no idea. I didn't get a chance to see it yet, so you guys can tell me what.
I think the big part for next week is Jon and Dany's meeting. That's the big thing that's coming up, which I'm very, very. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Do you ship them?
Do I ship them? Mm-hmm. I did until I found out they were related.
Yeah, but they're Targaryen.
That's very true. Yeah, I did want them together until I found out they were related, and then I'm like, oh, that's just kind of gross, but we are.
And unless, if we don't ship them, then Jon. Well, we don't even know if Jon can reproduce if he's still a white. We don't know what's going on there. So if Dany does take over, is just this the end of the Targaryen line anyway? Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
So I wonder. It's something that you could make an argument for. It could happen in the show over the happening in the book, or it could happen in the book over happening in the show. Because it's one thing to have a brother and sister having sex all the time. It's another thing for a niece and a nephew to get married and start a new dynasty. I don't know. I think they could probably get away with it in the show, but I'm not so sure if it'll happen or not. It seems to be the talk that everybody wants to go. By the way, I should have mentioned Emilia Clarke is outstanding. She's getting better and better. I'm really enjoying her scenes. She looks amazing. She really looks amazing, and I think she's really, like, when you're up against Peter Dinklage and like Conleth Hill, and you can pull out a performance like that. I think she's doing a great job. I wonder, has acting with those two actors in particular improved her performance? Because it seems like it has.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else from the preview next week?
That's all I can think of right now. Did you think of anything, Claire?
Yeah, I've made a quick note. It's very quick, as they always are, Catherine. It was like 30 seconds, and you get a clip of Dany doing her "I was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms and I will," and it just made me think, who is she? So you can hear her saying it, but it doesn't necessarily, you can't see who it is she's directing this conversation to. You also see Euron having this great reception in King's Landing, in the streets of King's Landing. The small folk in King's Landing seem to be really cheering him on, and he's kind of like some returning celebrity in King's Landing.
Who is he wearing? Just see him.
Oh, he's wearing his usual,
but who is he wearing, Vivian? Westwood, Burberry? Like, I want to know. Yeah.
Looks a bit Vivian Westwood, I think, this time, with his guy liner. But he's getting lots of cheers from the crowd as he's walking up to the Red Keep. Cersei, there's a very quick clip of Cersei, I think, talking to Jaime, where she's saying the war has begun. We've already drawn first blood, which is obviously the battle this week. Tyrion saying Cersei knows we're coming, so I'm guessing that's relating to, I think, the big action battle scenes next week will obviously be the taking Castle Rock. Daenerys has got to have some kind of military and strategic advantage next week, because I think this week was Cersei definitely, round one to Cersei kind of thing. And then at the very end, you see Jon entering the throne room at Dragonstone, and Daenerys in the distance, sat on the throne, very majestically sat on the throne. So it ends with this kind of hold your breath moment of them both meeting for the first time, and it's him walking into the throne room and her sat on the throne. So it's very, it's this very formal. I'm sure she's going to immediately demand that he bends the knee.
I can't wait. Oh my God.
Don't know. If it's to be believed that that Jon is Targaryen, it just makes me, wouldn't it be wonderful when he arrives at Dragonstone if all three dragons just immediately bow down to him? Can you imagine the look on Daenerys' face?
Well, that's why it'd be great if he's with her when Bran and maybe the Hound are arriving and forcing things to happen so that Sansa finds out, maybe even Arya finds out, and Jon hasn't a clue. Still.
So just remind me of the name of the episode next week.
Oh, I didn't see the name. I'm totally out of the loop.
There's Marco, if he's still there in the chat.
The
name of the episode for next week is...
It's just what you were saying there about Cersei and the war has begun and all that. It kind of hits me there that Olenna, Cersei, and Dany, and potentially Sansa, have nothing to lose if they don't see beyond their own lifetime, because none of them have children. Olenna can't have any more children, obviously. Dany, for all she knows, she can't have any more children. Cersei, Jaime is not going to give Cersei any more children, or at least she's not looking for them. Sansa has all the hallmarks of being a virgin queen type character, even though she's no longer a virgin, but maybe, no longer letting a man touch her. So it strikes me that that's a very, very dangerous situation if they can't see beyond their own lifetime, because we had Cersei talking about that. It's called The Queen's Justice next week, is it? Maybe.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. It's Queen something. Yeah, Queen's Justice sounds.
Okay.
Oh, well. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff going on at Dragonstone. So potentially you've got Jorah returning, you've got Theon potentially returning.
Okay, well, that's Littlefinger definitely getting it next week then.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, this talk about this season being a lot of stories kind of, you know, flipping back on itself and people meeting up rather than going separate ways. This episode next week, I think, is going to be a huge one for that. I think there's going to be all sorts of stuff going on. And then in the background, you've got this epic battle at Castle Rock where I reckon we say goodbye to Grey Worm in a spectacularly, you know, he's going to be really brave and he's going to, maybe it's a key moment in the battle. But yeah, I think you're right though, Catherine. I think that once Grey Worm's gone, I think Missandei will really resent Daenerys for that.
And when she said to him that you're my weakness, because he stands up for Dany so much, I wonder has that prevented her from doing what she needs to do with Dany. Missandei, when Varys had that scene with the mother that was sleeping with the Unsullied. Do you remember that single? Was she sleeping with the Unsullied? Or Varys brought the young mother in. She was an informer for the Harpies, and she was a very similar type of character to Missandei. So I wonder. I don't know. I don't trust Missandei at all. Yeah, I don't know. I don't trust her. But yeah, I think once Grey Worm is out of the way, he won't be there for her to disappoint either.
I mean, yeah, Melisandre could still be hanging around at Dragonstone. There could be all sorts of stuff going on, but definitely in the trailer, you can see Jon clearly turning up in the throne room at Dragonstone and Daenerys being all queenly, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I think every single episode is going to be action.
Will they burn the bodies in Casterly Rock? Like, is it common for them to burn bodies in the south?
No, I think that really only happens in the north.
Because Cersei burned all of she had Tommen burned. So all of the bodies of any of the Lannisters. So the Lannisters won't even get to come back as whites. So that would be interesting. But maybe we'll have Grey Worm as a white. So guys, what do you want to do next week?
I think we had said we were going to do it on Thursday next week, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Thursday next week. And on my channel, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is it back to my channel,
Perfect.
I think, this time? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, in the chat. So, big shout out to Margaret and Varnish Vixen and Marco. Florrie was here earlier. I think she's busy. She's had to go and do something. I think her son was there as well. And
can we say thanks to everybody who commented on like the last week's videos, because I had some really interesting chats in last week's video. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. This has been really fun so far, so I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season goes.
Thanks for hosting, Lisa.
Well, thank you for working through my technical difficulties.
The blind leading the blind. I can do that.
Hi, everyone.
All right, bye.
Bye, guys.